Further, there are two main types of computer-mediated communication theory. There is synchronous, which is real-time, or asynchronous, at their leisure. Most communities are asynchronous, whereas things like chat rooms are synchronous. There are many general communication theories that apply to online communities, but there are three in particular that you should know, or at least that I feel are more prominent in online communities. So we'll be discussing those. All right. So the three communication theories that I'm going to be talking about will act as barriers to your members. By understanding these three communication theories, it'll help you understand exactly what part of their member evolution they are in, and understand why they're either not engaging, why they may be engaging, or if there's an issue with the site and the tools that you're using. So we'll be talking about the adaptive structuration theory, communication accommodation theory, and the spiral of silence. And running parallel to that is understanding their motivation. So for that, we're going to use the psychological theory, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So understanding CMC theory will help you reduce engagement barriers, improve or expand the tools of your community, request community changes based on member needs, and give you an edge when looking for community manager jobs. Alright, so as you see here, this is the Rock'em Sock'em robots. This, for short, is SOCEM, the self-sustaining online community ecosystem model. Now I'm going to break this down into different parts, and if you have been part of the class for the last few sessions, you might start to understand why I broke it down the way I did. And as I go through this, I will show you the completed model, and this should act as a foundation for anyone who's going to be a community architect and building an online community from scratch. So initially what you have here, when you go to an online community, generally there's a reason for it. So let's say we'll use an example of I'm creating an online community about online communities. Well, clearly there's going to be quite a few of those out there. It's meta in itself, but are you going to be able to make it unique? And is there a reason that you can actually create this? Now, if there are duplicates of exactly what you're wanting to do, and you're not going to have a unique community, this model is not really going to help you. The whole point of having a foundation and building an online community is to build something that hasn't been built, or is going to be unique enough where members and people are going to want to actually use that platform to discuss things. So what we have here is the initial phase. Now, looking on the right, we have the physiological needs, which is the initial part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Why it's disconnected is because you have to assume when a person's going to be going to an online community, it's very likely that they have their physiological needs fulfilled. So what that means is they probably have shelter, food, water, their basic needs already fulfilled, or they probably aren't going to be going to your online community. Now, there obviously are going to be exceptions. Some people might still have access to Wi-Fi. Luckily, Wi-Fi is becoming more prevalent in different areas, so it just kind of varies. But the norms of it would be their physiological needs are already completed or fulfilled, so that's why it's disconnected. Anyways, moving on to the model and where your communication theory falls into this, basically we're going to look at it this way. When a new user finds your network, they're going to be looking at this. Is it easy to use and easy to navigate? If that's the case, it's very likely that they'll become a lurker in some form or shape. Now what that means is an active lurker is going to be a person who shares your content. Maybe they'll create an account on your community, but they will be active outside of your community. So if you have an external community, those active lurkers are going to be very useful to you in helping you grow and get other people back to your community. So think of them as kind of your cheerleaders. The passive lurker, however, is going to be the person who consumes your content and either moves on, or they come back and consume your content some more. They don't necessarily create accounts, they might, but they're not going to be posting your stuff anywhere else. They're not going to be engaging on your site or anything of that nature. Now, understand, as we're going through this process of the different member roles, I'm going to be kind of reiterating what we did in the first class, but even a power user can at times also be a lurker as well. It just kind of depends. So not every percentage of the time is going to be a power user being a power user. At sometimes they're just consuming content as well. So it doesn't mean that every single thing they see they have to respond to. Alright, so running parallel to that is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, stating their safety needs. So if a person is coming to your online community, there's a reason for it. At the bare minimum, now there's obviously a lot of other motivational reasons for this, so we're just going to work from the bare minimum and work our way up. So at a bare minimum, a person who's coming to your community is looking to satisfy their safety needs. Now they could be looking to belong, for esteem needs, to become an expert on the subject matter, but as I said before, we're working from the bare minimum and our way up. So the safety need basically says this person's looking for information on a particular subject. Well, that's exactly what an online community is for. Either it's customer service, maybe it's a professional community, maybe it's a social community. Let's just take an example of any subreddit. If someone's going to the all group, maybe they just want to look at pictures of cats. It's not necessary that you're going to be looking for information if that's the case. Now, if someone's going to be going to like WebMD and they're looking for medical advice, maybe they're going to go and ask some other people who have experienced certain other issues that are tied to what you're searching for, and that's why they're searching for and posting more specific information and questions so they can grab additional information. So what does a new member need fulfilled before advancing? The very first barrier that a member is going to be reaching before they can get to that part where they're going to actually be posting comments is the adaptive structuration theory. So the adaptive structuration theory, or AST, posits that four major sources of structure, technology, task, environment, and the group's internal system, affect social interaction, which in turn is the key determinant of social outcomes such as decisions, efficiency, quality, consensus, and further on. And AST was created or established by DeSanctis and Poole. You can take a look further, and it's actually a little bit on Wikipedia, but this theory is built on the structuration theory, so it's not as well established. However, it is a well-known computer-mediated communication theory, so you should be able to find a lot of additional information as well. The short answer is AST initially affects users and how they interact with the subject based on four sources of structure, and once engaged with the community, they will further evolve and advance the tools that are used. So let's use this as an example. When Twitter was first created, do you think Biz Stone and Jack were thinking in the back of their minds, this tool is going to be great for global revolutions, producing information on the fly, being a huge news source, and being able to be the first source of information to tell people when bin Laden was being attacked? Of course they didn't. No one could have ever imagined that's what was going to happen. Well, members started to use the tool, they interacted with it, and they evolved it. Because those parts and aspects were fulfilled, members felt they were part of the community, they were growing the community, and the community was growing and evolving around them. They further engaged with it. So they continue to post, they continue to tweet. Obviously, that means they are engaged, and they become general members. So moving on to the next aspects, as you can see, the adaptive structuration theory is at the base here. So once they've moved past that barrier, they're interacting with the community tool, and now they want to know, are there active discussions? So at the base, we're also looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to assume that for this to occur or to have the member advance, they're going to want to at least belong to that community. So again, if we're talking about, I'll use the example for Prius chat. Maybe someone's looking to buy a Prius. Sorry, it's kind of a nerdy example, but it's another community that I'm familiar with, so I can use better information about it as well. So maybe you're looking to purchase one. There's a lot of people that have a lot of great information there. They're owners. They're looking to buy it. They just bought one, so you can get some reference on how much you should spend. You know, they want to be part of that community. They want to be part of that cool kid exclusive club. Alright, maybe for this example, not so much the cool kid club, but they want to be part of that group. So what we're going to be seeing here is the member discovery and evolution phase. This is going to be where a general member can either become a potential advanced user or just continue to be a general member. Now the difference between a general member and an advanced member is going to be facing the communication accommodation theory. Now this is going to be one of the major barriers. Now once your people are already engaging, that's great, but what you really want is going to see part of the 90-9-1 principle. What that basically means is 90% of your community is going to be lurkers or people who do not actively engage on your site. But since we broke down lurkers, you understand how important to the site lurkers are to your growth. The 9% is going to be anyone who is not a power user that is actively engaging on your site. So let's say you have 100 members on your site. That means about 90 of them or so are going to be lurkers. 9 of them are going to be posting just general comments, not frequently, but on, you know, you'll see them once a week maybe for that case. And then the 1% or one user out of that 100 is going to be the power user. That person's going to be there every day. They think they know everything about everything. Maybe they do know everything about everything. But they wield their information and their influence in the community, and they continue to use that to their advantage. And that would either be due to they want to fulfill their esteem needs or self-actualization and prove that they're an expert. And we'll get to that in just a second. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent there. So the communication accommodation theory essentially says it is the difference between an advanced member and a general member is their ability to adapt to social norms. So let's take an example here. What Redditors see and what outsiders see. Alright, right now we see Chuck Testa. So on Reddit for maybe 24 hours there was a meme of a guy who liked to do taxidermy, and he had a pretty interesting commercial to say the least. There was some auto-tuning and a whole lot of other things, but the meme still rolled on a little bit. However, Redditors know exactly what that is. So if someone asks a question and they're not exactly familiar with Reddit, but someone responds with something like, "Nope, Chuck Testa," that outsider is going to... Sorry, I'm trying not to laugh here. This is a terrible example. That outsider is going to be asking, "I'm not understanding what this is." They're not going to decode the message as it was intended. So going back to that initial model of communication, the Shannon-Weaver model of communication, what we have is a failure to communicate. The intended message was trying to be humorous or trying to use a meme. For whatever way they intended, the person who asked a question will just be confused and possibly turned off from communicating further with that community. Now, essentially what we're getting at here is the communication accommodation theory is the barrier between that advanced member and the general member. Now, if they're able to understand and adapt to that communication and the social norms, they're going to be converging with the communication that's occurring on that site. So if your community is using inside jokes, they're using acronyms or specific information about a car, for example, they're going to be more in tune with what the community is talking about. So a general member, they may not take the time to observe what everyone else is doing, whereas an advanced member, they're going to look and try to see what people are saying and what they're doing so they can fit in a little bit more. And that moves back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Someone who wants to belong is likely going to be converging with others. Now, the power user, we're going to get to that in just a second. They're going to be talking about the spiral of silence, or using the spiral of silence to continue to be a power user. Now, a power user doesn't even have to converge with everyone. Essentially, what that power user is going to be doing is creating the bandwagon. So they set forth a message, and people will jump on it and converge with them. Now, they may not always be correct, but because they hold influence, they're holding the spiral of silence as a power tool so they can continue to be right. Now, one of the great things that I love about Reddit is that it has the up and down votes. This kind of reduces some of that spiral of silence issue. So even if you're a lurker, you can still downvote something if it's blatantly wrong. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way because people will abuse the system, but either way, in a regular online community, you'll probably just have a commenting system and potentially a up and down or thumbs up, thumbs down system. So if it's spam, you can allow your users to kind of knock that out. But your power users are going to be influential, so it's more likely that you're going to have to deal firsthand with them. Alright, let me just pull this up. So the final role a general member can take is that of a power user, which makes up the small percentage of an online community, but is also the most vocal. Like all hierarchies, the leaders have the most influence on what the tone, continued themes, social norms, and acceptance into the communities are. As a result, power users' influence on the community and the spiral of silence asserts that other members will be less likely to express their opposing opinion on a given topic because they appear to be the minority. And based on past research, face-to-face communication would have you think that if someone's online, that they would be more likely to oppose a wrong or possibly different or differing opinion. But that's not generally the case based on just some research, not even my own research, but a lot of other collegiate resources that I used through this process. Alright, and of course as you're going through this, once you get through the power user, you get to the community manager. Now in some situations, a power user can be almost as powerful as a community manager. They're going to be the ones creating a lot more content than any other user. They're going to be influential, so you're going to want to be best friends with them. Now, sometimes these power users could be an issue as well, so you just really want to make sure you work with them and keep a strong relationship. All right. So here is the completed model, and essentially this just shows you a better example of what we're going through here. It shows the evolution of how a lurker goes through to a general member, advanced member, and then to the power user, and of course running parallel with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.